Oh, and good evening. It's February 17th, 2026, and we're continuing our discussion collection in Outside the Class series. This series from the Bible Project covers the entire TaNaK, the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. Those source videos are available for your review. They're on TheDustyFeet.com in the Outside the Class section. Because the intent of Outside the Class, if you listen to the in-class lecture first, that would be those short overview videos. Then we just expand the conversation. With these little pieces, we try to keep it about 15 minutes. Make them easy to catch up on. So we're on a quest, scroll by scroll, book by book, a journey through this collection, but just maybe with a fun and different twist. Our hope with the Dusty Feet is to foster discussion and to help build and support communities. If you're not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. TheDustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Substack. Link is in the description below. It's designed around the written and spoken text. It's a place to connect to ourselves and others. 3. Facebook at The Dusty Feet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. 4. And as always, you're welcome to send an email to bob@thedustyfeet.com. These places, they will be moderated and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on The Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. And of course, before we forget, if you do find these kinds of podcasts useful, please click that subscribe button. But those reminders, they're just there to help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. So in this series, right, we're going to cover the entire TaNaK, the Old Testament, but we're going to do it in the original order of the Hebrew scriptures. And also remember, the videos we discuss, they're just the tip of an iceberg. They are part of an entire learning series that I highly recommend, and all of them can be found on the Bible Project's website. Because we're going to ask many questions about all kinds of things. The answers? We will see. Samuel, second scroll. This is our part 14. So we're going to pick this up at the beginning of chapter 15, right? Verse 1. Now, it came about after this that Absalom provided for himself a chariot and horses and 50 men to run ahead of him. And Absalom used to rise early, stand beside the road to the gate, and when any man who had a lawsuit was to come before the king for judgment, Absalom would call out to him and say, "From what city are you?" And he would say, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "See, your claims are good and right, but you have no one to listen to you on the part of the king." Moreover, Absalom would say, "Oh, that someone would appoint me judge in the land. Then every man who has a lawsuit or a claim could come to me, and I would give him justice." And whenever a man approached to prostrate himself before him, he would put out his hand and take hold of him and kiss him. Absalom dealt this way with all Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the people of Israel. Now it came about at the end of 4 years that Absalom said to the king, "Please, let me go and pay my vow which I've made to the Lord in Hebron. For your servant made a vow while I was living in Geshur in Aram, saying, if the Lord will indeed bring me back to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord." And the king said to him, "Go in peace." So he got up and he went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies through the tribes of Israel, saying, "As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, 'Absalom is king in Hebron.'" Then 200 men went with Absalom from Jerusalem, who were invited, and they went innocently, for they did not know anything. Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gilonite, David's counselor from the city of Gilo, when he was offering sacrifices, and the conspiracy, well, it was strong, for the people continually increased with Absalom. So I want to be fair up front, just to let you know a little about me. I'm really not a fan of conspiracy theories, just not where I tend to go when thinking about a lot of things. However, that does not mean that I am unaware of actual conspiracy, right? This is the intent of someone else to subvert. And here, it's really clear. It asks so many interesting questions, like, how could this go on for so many years without reaching the king's ears, right? It's really interesting. Let's be honest. This is probably truly a foreign concept to us, because we can't have things that seem unknown for long at all. I mean, days, hours, minutes. In our world today, February 17th, 2026, right? Things spread so far and so fast. It's like wildfire. Even rumors would show up somewhere. And yet in 4 years, this never reaches the ears of the king. Until David ends up having to go with this, right? It's because it's already too late by the time he finds out. There's even more in the response that we're going to get from David, right? Because then he really understands the issue. He really understands the situation. He really understands the sway that his son appears to have taken, and that it puts him, his family, and his allies at risk. Starts in verse 13. Chapter 15. Then a messenger came to David, saying, the hearts of the people of Israel are with Absalom. So David said to all his servants who were with him in Jerusalem, arise, and let's flee, for otherwise none of us will escape from Absalom. So go quickly, or he will hurry and overtake us, and bring disaster on us, and strike the city with the edge of the sword. Then the king's servants said to the king, behold, your servants will do whatever my lord the king chooses. So the king left, all his household with him, but the king left 10 concubines behind to take care of the house. And the king left all the people with him, and they stopped at the last house. Now all of his servants passed by beside him, right? And all the Cherethites, all the Pelethites, and all the Gittites. And then those 600 men who had come with him from Gath, they passed before the king. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, why should you go with us too? Return, stay with your king. Since you were a foreigner and an exile as well, go return to your own place. You came only yesterday, so should I make you wander with us today, while I go wherever I go? Return, take your brothers back. Mercy and truth be with you. But Ittai answered the king and said, as the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, wherever my lord the king may be, whether for death or for life, there assuredly shall your servant be. Then David said to Ittai, go, cross over the brook of Kidron. So Ittai the Gittite crossed over with all his men and all the little ones who were with him. While all the country was weeping with a loud voice, all the people were crossing over. The king was also crossing over the brook of Kidron, and all the people were crossing over toward the way of the wilderness. I love these complicated tales, these life stories in our scriptures. We have so many contrasts, right? We have utter betrayal from his son Absalom. We have utter loyalty. Oddly enough, it's not even from a tribe of Israel, right? It's from Ittai the Gittite, this foreigner, right, who believes that David is the chosen king of the Lord. And here we start to see loyalty stories unfold. David's acknowledgement of that loyalty. We also see David's heart, because certain situations will unfold when we're not even there, and he's going to comment, if this happens, then, right? I love those if-then statements. If this is what God wants, it'll happen. If not, well, it will not. Chapter 15, verse 24. Now, behold, Zadok also came, and all the Levites with him, carrying the ark of the covenant of God. And they set down the ark of God, and Abiathar came up until the people had finished crossing over from the city. And the king said to Zadok, return the ark of God to the city. If I find favor in the sight of the Lord, then he will bring me back and show me both it and his habitation. But if he says this, I have no delight in you, then here I am. Let him do to me as seems good to him. And the king also said to Zadok the priest, are you not a seer? Return to the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, your son Ahimaaz and Jonathan, the son of Abiathar. And then see, I'm going to wait at the river crossing places of the wilderness until word comes from you to inform me. So Zadok and Abiathar returned the ark of God to Jerusalem, and they remained there. So David takes a very bold stance. This is a point where he says, hey, if I'm God's man, then he'll bring me back here. And if I'm no longer his man, then he won't, right? He has seen this before. He's seen this with Saul. He knows that it is possible that the favor with God, well, it can change. Okay, I want to pause here for a minute, just to kind of be aware of what I just said, right? How uncomfortable that can be, leaving a hanging question that probably needs to be talked about amongst yourselves, along with me here and my friends, is the point that he understands that God's favor is chosen only by God. The spirit that he gave was only by God. And still, David knows that his own actions and behavior put God in this position to have to make these certain choices. So David sent the ark back. It returned, stayed in Jerusalem. And then the story continues to unfold. We end up at a place that, well, if you read this story, if you haven't read it, and you're unfamiliar with it anyways, maybe you haven't read this second scroll of Samuel all the way, and maybe you missed the opportunity to see connections, echoes in other stories. Starts in verse 30. And David was going up the ascent of the Mount of Olives. He was weeping as he went. His head was covered. He was walking barefoot. Then all the people who were with him each covered his own head, and they were going up, weeping as they went. Now someone informed David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, Lord, please make the advice of Ahithophel foolish. And it happened, as David was coming to the summit where God had worshipped, that behold, Hushai the Archite met with him, his coat torn, dust on his head. And David said to him, if you go over with me, then you'll become a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, even as I was your father's servant in time past, so now also I will be your servant. Then you can foil the advice of Ahithophel for me. Are Zadok and Abiathar the priests not with you there? So it shall be that whatever you hear from the king's house, you shall report back to Zadok and Abiathar the priests, and behold, their 2 sons that are there with them, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son, and by them you shall send me everything that you hear. So Hushai, David's friend, came into the city, and Absalom, well, he came into Jerusalem. So David ascends the Mount of Olives. I love it when stories are connected. I think there's more interesting things to me. Because this is a continual challenge for me, right? Given how I've viewed things in the past, and I kind of want to change how I view things. Because we do have a story of Jesus going up the Mount of Olives. But I'm starting to think to myself a little bit, should I maybe have thought about, Jesus is doing the same thing that David did? Not that David did the same thing that Jesus did. Does that make sense? That repetition is forward. And me understanding that, maybe I can have a better understanding or grasp of that particular situation because of where the original story will remind me of the current story, not the other way around. But I guess that's my propensity for my upside down thinking, right? I'm trying to appreciate the story better as it's lived in its time. We're going in a certain direction, and what things can be seen or not seen, they're based on the direction that it's heading in real life. Because I don't remember ever being told in a church setting that David did the same thing that Jesus did the same thing that David did. And there's hurt here. It's not exactly the same, but I think very similar. It's a feeling of betrayal, not only by an individual, but also by that larger group at hand. Because the closest of the betrayals here are with his own son. It's immensely painful. But I would think that the betrayal of Jesus with, say, Judas, I think they might have felt very much the same. Something to ponder. So thanks for being with us tonight on another episode of Outside the Class with the second scroll of Samuel on the Dusty Feet.